Good morning, everyone. This is Lisa from Digital Connect Draws. I hope everyone's having an awesome day. I wanted to do a quick video today um, as I am drawing out a wonky house, which is don't tell anyone, for a Facebook group challenge that I'm part of for the month of January. The category is tiny houses, and so I thought I would make a wonky house for my partner, who I don't know who it is yet. But if they're on here, they may recognize what they get in the mail at the end of the month. So what you'll notice is that I am using permanent ink as an outliner instead of markers. I will be going back in and using watercolors. And I just find that using permanent ink is a fantastic alternative to markers. First of all, the ink is really, really inexpensive. I use a large bottle that I transfer into these little speedball jars. And so they're really manageable. I have a small small nib, and I'm able to use thin and thick lines. And I find that it works really well with watercolor. I don't end up wrecking my nibs. And I just really enjoy the fact that it's a deep, deep black. And I have the option to outline before or after. So we're just making, your typical wonky house. And a house only becomes wonky when the lines are curved and they're in a unpredictable perspective, I want to say. And the thing is with the ink as well, it's going to dry pretty darn quickly. So I'm really happy about that. And we got to have a little tree and our little sun. And let's put a couple of little bushes in here as well because we can. Okay, so I'm thinking I'm going to let that go off to dry a little bit. And let's try, tiny houses that aren't wonky houses. So we're going to put them on a hill and maybe what we'll do is we'll deal with three houses. So we'll put one here in the center, kind of like a taller one. And you'll notice that I'm putting the roof line hanging over the sides. And don't overthink this. This is really quite basic. And I'm going to be kind of sloppy with my watercolor because I'm either going to be loose with my outline or loose with my watercolor. So I'm going to have fairly solid lines so that I can also go back over it after I'm done and thicken some of the lines if I want to. So these tiny houses are tiny, tiny. Look at the size of the card. So here we have some good neighbors, so they're going to be able to do laundry in between houses. And the houses are going to be basically the same style. So we're going to have a little chimney on this guy and chimney on that guy and maybe even a satellite dish here, because why not? And we have a chimney, and let's see, we need a pathway, I think, as well. First, we'll put the laundry, and don't forget the pegs. And if you have not tried these pens, you can go to Michael's and just get the cheapo set. This is not an expensive set at all. And look at how long the ink lasts. I'm not having to re-dip very often at all. So I'm really happy about that. So we'll put a nice big window in this one and put a little frame there, I think. And then, yes, this guy needs a little bit of laundry. And then what you'll find too is that when you look at kind of cartoony, kind of, what do they call them? Whimsical drawings, you'll notice that their line thickness varies. So we're going to be working with that line thickness once the whole thing is painted and dried. So I think that's a really good exercise. And here's a pathway. And I think that's pretty good. We'll put our ink away because you know what? We don't want an accident to happen. Accidents happen. So this guy here is is completely dry. Now look at that beautiful palette. Oh my goodness. That is a palette that I go to all the time. And I will not wash this palette until I've used up all the paint. The amount of paint left over on this palette could easily do, I can't even say how many cards it would do. I just have this uh, to go back to and use up some of this paint. So don't don't waste paint. If you can, I also have smaller round plates, porcelain plates that I'll use for a new project and put new paint down. And then guess what? That goes into rotation until I'm done. And you know what I find is a lot of the times when you have leftover paint, you end up with colors that really complement each other because you were working with that palette. So 9 times out of 10, all the colors are going to work. So there's not a lot of mixing happening. Just find the shade and hue that you want and then just go for it. So here you see I'm not being all fussy and overthinking. I'm just painting. Just paint. Pick the color, paint. These are ATCs that are supposed to be relaxing and enjoyable to do. And if you're not having fun with it, I think you need to rethink it. We just want to have fun here. So now I'm gonna do some wet on wet with the sun. I'm gonna find a nice shade of yellow. Yeah, that one will do. That one will do. And put this in, and I'm gonna want it a little bit brighter. So I will go in after the fact with a little bit more bright yellow. But see how nice the outline is for this kind of wonky sun. So one of the things I wanted to mention about the inks is make sure the ink that I'm using is called Higgins calligraphy ink, and that's just from Michaels. It's not a big deal. And I just bought a little beginner set of calligraphy nib pens. And the one thing I will say is that my first one was wooden. The handle was wooden. I didn't like it. I didn't like it. It got soggy. It chipped. It was terrible. So I made sure I got a cheapo plastic one, and that seems to work really, really well. So now I'm going in to paint the front face of the house, and I'm gonna try to leave the windows blank. Um, and I kind of like this kind of brownie color. I'm gonna want to give it a little bit more dimension. So I'm gonna go in and I'm gonna pick up a little bit of a darker color so that I can create the shadow. And I think that's gonna give it a little bit more dimension. And then I'll come back in later and kind of blend it a little bit because I think that will be really good. So as another note, I wanted to make mention of what I'll be working on in 2025. I want to be able to really come out of my comfort zone. This is not a style of art that I'm used to doing, these kind of cartoony things. Um, this is really outside of my comfort zone. But that's really what I want 2025 to be all about. I want to use different mediums and I want to try to incorporate different styles. And that way I can kind of have a year of exploration. I don't want to just stay and do what I always do. And it kind of lends itself well to how I do art and how I am creative. I really enjoy a, a vast amount and a huge variety of types of art. So I think it's going to lend itself well. I don't want to just do one style of art. And do you know what? I think ATCs are going to lend themselves really well to an exploration of different mediums and different types of artwork. So um, you're going to be able to look forward to seeing that. I want to be able to have so many different kinds of styles to hand out to people, to trade with people on Facebook pages. And if you're not a member of a Facebook page that trades ATCs and you want to get into it, I really would try go to Facebook and seek them out and just decide whether you want to be trading them snail mail or in person. I am part of a group that, two groups, one that does it all snail mail and one that does it in person. So I'm really quite excited about that. And as we work through winter, I'll be excited to do more in-person trading in the spring and summer. That will be great. So here you can see I'm putting some much darker shadows on the edge of the houses. And I think we tend to be a little bit ginger about the shading that we do. So now we're moving on to the other house. I'm going to do some dry on wet or wet on dry. The canvas is, or the paper is dry and the paint is wet. So I want it to have a little bit more texture on this grassy part. So, and the ink is dry. I have no worries whatsoever about the ink bleeding or anything like that. So I'm really happy about that. So this little guy, you'll notice that the whimsical wonky house had a lot more details um, as far as the paint goes. This house has more details as far as the ink goes and has um, less details as far as the paint goes. So we're not going to be fussing with edges and things like this. We're just going to do a swoop for the pathway, and the houses in particular will be much simpler as far as the painting goes. And we're just basically hinting at what's happening. The sun, nothing. You know, just give a little hint of the rays that are going through, and let's decide about the houses. And I like to have the houses kind of match or be in the same kind of color family. And I'm not going to be worried about any of the windows, probably except for the one on the very end, um, because it's really big. But I'm going to basically be pulling from the same color palette for all three of these houses and then just darkening up the roof. But we're not going to be fiddling around with a lot of the details like we were with the other ones. So we're going to go through, and one of the things I did want to mention is with my ATCs is I'm going to be trying to keep track of my ATCs this year. 2025, I want to be able to catalog my ATCs. I found that last year the time just flew by, and I was trying really hard to take pictures of all the cards I created and to try to keep track of them and where they went and all of these things, and I could just got so lazy bones. So in December I tried to create a spreadsheet that will help me keep track of my ATCs, and I'm actually writing numbers on the back of them so that I can keep track of them by number as well. And the only thing I did really was put um, 6 numbers. So the first two is the month. So for ones in December, it was 12, and then a dot, and then the day, and then a dot, and then the number of the card that I made for that day. So let's say I made 5. It would be 5 on the 20th of December. So it would be 12.20.1, 2, 3, 4, or 5. So that's how I'm doing it. And then I'm just taking a picture of them and putting them on my Google Drive, and then saying who I traded with. I'm not going to go down the rabbit hole of saying what they traded with me or anything like this. I'm just doing it that way, just to try to keep track. And then when it comes time to trading in person, we'll see how that goes. But I do want to have my cards cataloged. I want to see what I've done, how I've progressed, what the different mediums I've tried. And so we'll see how that goes for 2025. Do you have a method that you use to keep track of your ATCs? Let me know in the comments below because it may be a better way than I do. I don't know. I'm still learning and growing with this whole ATC movement, and I only heard about it in August. So I'm a completely newbie. So any advice anybody has, I am happy to hear about it. So there's our little guy with our three houses and our nice neighbors, and then there's our wonky house. And I think that all worked out really well. And then we can go back in and add some more details, the finer details, and let's give it some, you know, just finer details that gives it dimension, I want to say. And you can go back and create darker lines. Hash marks on the side of the building kind of gives the impression of bricks, but still keeps it kind of cartoony. So that's really good. And then we make sure we put some life in there and some leaves and some detail, but nothing, don't overthink it. We're not here to overthink. Um, but we're giving impressions. And you notice the black ink just works fantastic. It really, really does. And it lasts a really long time. So we'll finish off with the little house. So I hope you guys are enjoying this, and I will be doing more videos going over different materials and styles that I'm working with and creating some ATCs that I'm doing for groups that I'm a member of. And we're going to go over to the other little guy and maybe add some grass and some details on the houses, like the roofs. Let's give them a little bit of texture. And then, we're pretty much done, guys. I'm going to put a black backing on these cards and then my artist info. And that's really going to be it. And then they will go off into the mail when I find out who my partner is. So that's it, guys. I hope you enjoyed this video. I hope you have a really awesome day. And I will see you on the next video or on Facebook. Have an awesome day. Bye.